So like any good actor, I have my props. So why not engage in the dynamic world of theater, right? So theater has existed since the time of the caveman. That's what I believe. Since that first caveman came back to the clan and told the story of how he killed that wild boar. And he probably didn't tell it like this. Right? Not very interesting. No, he probably told the story of this heroic, mighty battle with this boar that he killed and brought back like this. He brought the audience around him, right? He drew the clan close, and he told the story. No language, right? We assume he didn't have any language. Right? Yeah. See? That caveman, he became the president. Because it's all about being popular. And he understood that telling an amazing story was good theater, amazing an audience. So what we need to do to engage a new audience in theater is to keep telling them amazing stories and find new spaces and places to entertain them, but most importantly, make them part of the action. So that's what I'm going to talk about. First off, would you read that?
Who is our audience?
Who is our audience? That's a really good question. Who is our audience? Oh. You can't read that, can you? I know it's just after lunch and everybody's all relaxed and tired, but you can read it if you get up. Will we stand up and maybe come closer? Kind of come closer to the stage so you could read the slides? Yeah, I'm sorry, I know. Just come on around, yeah. Just gather on in. Maybe those of you who are close, you can see from there, but yeah, good. Great. Good. Come on, yeah. Come on around, don't be shy. Yeah, there you go. So, if you can read it now, it says that there are really basically two types of audience members. Come on, you can come closer. There are spectators and there are participants. And the way that's divided is how they interact with the show. So it's about how they experience the show, how they listen, and there's a difference between hearing and listening. Listening is about really processing what's going on. And how they watch or engage. And then most importantly, then how they own the piece. So first I want to talk about spectators. Spectators are the people who come to see shows who want to sit back and watch and be entertained. And that's people, we've grown up on movies, right? So we're used to going to the theater, to a movie theater, sitting back and watching and being entertained. And when we go to a live theater event, we kind of do the same thing in some ways. Those are spectators. And the only way to really reach them and to keep them engaged is to keep amping up the spectacle. That's why we call them spectators, spectacles. So we need to use animation, projections in video, animatronics, and probably mechanized scenery. Kind of sounds like a theme park ride, doesn't it? Right? The other group are participants. Those are the people who come to the theater because they want to be engaged. And you know, one of the great masters of drama was Shakespeare. And what he had for an audience were the groundlings. And the groundlings would pay a penny and stand around the stage. And they were really close to the action. And they would bring their food and their lunches and stuff. And if they weren't entertained, they would tend to throw some of those things at the audience or at the actors on stage. So I'm going to give you some weapons. So I'm going to leave these throughout the day. And if any of the rest of the speakers tend to bore you a little, I think that you should feel free to share with them. All right. And it's fair, too. I mean, if you're not liking what I'm saying, you can throw those up at me, too. So participants, right? So here's what we need to do for participants. We need to create more intimate theaters, right? The caveman, he drew the clan around him to tell them the story so that he could connect with them, so they could feel everything that he was saying. We need intimate theaters. One of the largest theaters in New York City, Lincoln Center, the largest complexes, almost. Almost the largest complex. It's just created a 112-seat theater. They have 2 Broadway houses on that complex, but a 112-seat theater where they're going to charge $20 a ticket. And that's to draw in younger audiences and new audiences to say, come and try it out and be connected to what's going on stage. We also need to find alternate spaces. So there's a show currently running in New York called Sleep No More, and it's an adaptation of the play Macbeth. And what they've done is taken 5 floors of a hotel and converted it and redesigned it. And you pay a ticket, and then you get to go and experience the show any way you want. So they run it on a loop, and you just walk through the floors of the hotel. They do the loop, it's about an hour loop, and they run it about 3 times a night. So I had a friend who went and saw this, and he went with a group of friends. The elevator door opened, and he went to get out. All his friends got out. The guy who was running the elevator threw him against the back of the wall, closed the door, gave him a piece of paper and said, take this to the queen. Opened the door, threw him out. He said he didn't see his friends again for another hour and a half, and when he did, one of his friends had blood all over his arm. And his friend said, not real blood, but fake blood, and said, you gotta come and see this. And so they went and looked at that part of the story. So he interacted and found the story the way they wanted. And they were all wearing masks, too, so you all wear a mask. So you get to just be an observer, which is really fascinating. So you should check it out. It's actually sold out for the next 3 months. Theater as destination. So I'm watching my time. There's a theater in London that was trying to do an adaptation of Gone with the Wind, and they lost their theater. So they saw a hotel with a big field in front of it that kind of looked like a southern plantation. So they decided to do the show in front of the hotel. They put up a tent that became the hospital, and they used the field for the battlefield. And what they discovered was that the audience were so engaged by going to each location and so much more interested, and they were a community of observers that they really enjoyed the show. And finally, we need to use technology. So there's a show locally here called Fatebook, and it was a wonderful show. It created 5 different rooms out of just projection screens, like you see up here, and which they were large-sized projection screens. The actors interacted with the story being told on the screens. You, as the audience member, had to actually walk through all the different rooms to figure out what the story was. And the story was, at the end of this story, somebody got shot, and we don't know. And that would be they would loop the show 5 times until the end when they showed us what actually really happened. And your interaction with the story relied totally on how you went through the rooms and tried to figure out the story by yourself. And so here you can see one of the large-scale images. This is the narrator actually telling the audience, taking them through the instructions of what to do. And then here's an actor interacting with other people and observers watching him, and more people watching him. And at the end, what we found out was who got shot and who did the shooting. And then the actors finished by telling the story about taking the guy away to the hospital and finishing the show. So, watching my time. We also need to give participants ownership by telling them stories that they really can relate to, things they can connect to, right? The caveman told a story about survival. He brought this wild boar back to the clan to feed them. Throwing a ball? Anyway, we got to throw some balls around really quick. Thank you. Good. All right. That's enough. We need to engage with the audience and use all the different sight, sound, taste, all the different things. So there's a show in New York, too, running off Broadway. There's a French chef who was a very famous French chef, and through the years he cooked for kings and queens. And so he stands up there and he talks about all the kings and queens he cooked for. And at the end of the show, as he's cooking, he serves the audience dessert. So I thought I'd bring a little dessert for your lunch. So it's just a little bit of candy. So you can engage with taste. Hopefully nobody gets impaled by a candy. I'll leave some more here. Here you go. So getting to taste and experience the show because his food was involved in it really put the audience in the show. And then there was one last piece where a show called Wireless Less, which was about a guy who stole laptop computers from people. And then he would gut them and sell them. But he falls in love with one of the women whose computer he steals, and he tries to begin a relationship with this person. And so the audience gets to sit out there and tweet and email instructions to this guy to help him figure out how to approach this woman and have a relationship. And so the story is different every night depending on the instructions he gets from the audience. So the audience has direct interaction with the storytelling. So, please read that.
Will this attract new audiences?
That's another good question. Will this attract new audiences? Well,
If we learn how to be good storytellers.
if we learn how to be good storytellers, it will.
If we understand human interaction.
Good point. If we understand human interaction.
If we learn to use technology to enhance the human experience and not replace it.
Right, so we have to use technology to enhance the human experience and not replace it. People always want to do that.
If we build and design new multi-purpose spaces.
Got to build and design new multi-purpose spaces, like some of the ones I described. You read already.
We engage and empower young people to show us the way.
Got to engage and empower young people to show us the way, because they come up with the best ideas.
We allow artists to experiment and create.
Right, so you got to allow artists to experiment and create and to fail. That's really important. If we do all these things, thank you. If we do all these things, then we will engage in a young audience, not just as spectators, but as people who want to participate, be involved. They come to the theater, they want to be a part of the action. And that doesn't necessarily have to be about being directly involved. You're a part of the action just sitting out there as well. But if we can give them things to connect to, then they'll love theater as much as everyone has throughout the years. Thank you very much.